I'm not a car collector. I just really love.
Really?
Well, my two favorite cars for any track are my.
Do you collect seats?
I'm not a collector.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sub 2 Club channel. Today we're here with Rob Hastings. Thank you so much for joining, Rob. And we're at your incredible man cave here today. So before we get into each cars, how did you begin your car life?
Well, I've been into cars since I can remember. I mean, literally my earliest memories as a kid, I was enamored with sports cars. The first car I remember like catching my eye on the street, I remember being in my mom's Toyota Corolla in the 80s and seeing a Pontiac Fiero go by on the street, and I was like, what is that? I don't know, maybe I was 5 years old or something, but yeah, literally I've been into cars forever. So when I was a teenager, in high school, I started really getting into cars because I was going to be, old enough to have a car eventually. And I heard about or found out about WRC rally racing at that time. It wasn't like a known thing here. I grew up here in LA. Nobody really knew about it. Everybody I went to school with was really into classic American muscle cars. But I got really into European cars and rally racing. I would buy there was a store in Burbank that sold obscure car-related magazines and videos and stuff. I'd save up my money and go buy videos from the UK. That so I could watch the WRC racing. And so that began my like real enthusiasm into tracking and cars, racing, that sort of thing.
Got it. What was your first car in high school?
First car I ever had was a 1981 Honda Civic wagon.
Wagon.
Yeah. I bought it for $100. It was hilariously slow. The paint was, clear coat was gone. The interior was gone. I put a humongous sound system in there, and I'd drive around with my friends just rattling doors with the bass.
Did you get into like the performance modification back then?
So I started like getting into modifications when I was in high school. I never had a car that was like worthwhile to modify. I had that Civic, and after that I had a pickup truck, and I drove the pickup truck like it was a rally car, but there wasn't much you could do to modify it back then, especially on zero budget. But friends who had sports cars, I started modifying those. Basic stuff like air intake,
exhaust.
Exhaust, upgraded ignition stuff. Since I was in high school, I started playing with cars. Before that, I've always been into motors and mechanical stuff. When I was a kid, I would build go-karts and fix up old motorcycles and stuff. So I was really into playing with motors, but I didn't start like modifying my own cars until the first like real sports car I had was when I was in college, and also when I was in college I got a job at a local speed shop near where I was going to school, and I was just a shop boy. I would sweep up and move cars around and stuff, but that gave me access after hours to use the lifts and the tools and the welder and stuff to work on my own car.
Cool.
So that's when I started really getting into modifying things and seeing how you could change cars that were factory to make them be faster, handle better, that sort of thing.
What was that car?
The first car that I started modifying, it was a 1987 Toyota MR2.
Oh wow!
The AW11, like the little triangular shaped one.
Yeah. And did you ever track it back then, or?
No, I had aspirations of tracking it. Back then, track days, like HPDE days, weren't really a thing, or if they were, it wasn't well known.
Right.
I worked at a speed shop, and we serviced a lot of track cars, but these were cars that were racing in like the Speed Vision World Touring Series or NASA SCCA stuff. So, I was maybe 19 years old or 20, and I thought, I want to go get my competition license and I want to start racing, but it wasn't like as accessible as it is now, where you can just take your car to the track and pay a couple $100 and go race around the track. So I would drive my car on the street like as if I was on the track, like every other stupid kid.
So then, how did the first track day come about?
Well, interesting. I have to think about when the first time I went to the track was, but it wasn't until much later in life. I didn't have like a fun car or like a track car when I was a young adult, like all through my 20s. I think I got my first track car when I was in my mid-30s. And so for all that period of time, I was still really into cars. I'd go watch races and, read about all the cars. I remember when Porsche introduced the GT3 for the American market, I was like, that's my dream. You can buy a car at the dealership and drive it straight on the racetrack someday,
There you have it, right?
That model.
Yeah. Sorry to stop you,
Yeah, no, cool. So, but I think my first track day was actually I had bought a Porsche Cayenne. Okay. The SUV. Yeah. But since I bought it new, and they gave me, application to join the Porsche Club of America and the Porsche Owners Club, and I saw that they put on track days, and I think that was the first time I ever drove my own car on the track, was in an SUV, and I went to a Porsche Owners Day at Auto Club and had a blast. It was amazing how well the SUV handled on the we just did the inside of the Auto Club, little road course. But that was fun, and then after that I bought a track car and started tracking.
Gotcha. Was that another Porsche then?
The first track car I bought was a E30 M3.
Okay.
And this was back before they were crazy desirable and expensive. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a stock. It was an SCCA car, like an ex-SCCA car. So, but stock motor, just gutted out with a cage, E30 M3. It was really great to learn handling. Definitely a momentum car, a lot like a Miata. Very slow, but handled great, and so that got me introduced to like actually going to tracking, and I really got hooked. And since then, I've been I don't do anything competitive, but I just go to the track as much as I can, and it's a lot of fun.
Right. I agree. For someone that has so many cars, do you have a dream car?
Ooh. I can't tell you that there's one car that I aspire to have right now. Really fortunate to be able to say that I've owned most of my dream cars at this point. I'm not a supercar guy. I just they don't draw me like the cars that were popular in the 90s. I'm so stuck on the cars that I idolized when I was younger, the late 80s and through the 90s, and I love the way that a lot of them drive, how there's really no
pure driving, right?
No computers, no traction control, just you in the car. And so from that era, there are still cars that I haven't had that I'd like to have, but like a Lancia Delta Corolla, or like a Porsche 959, that would be like a dream car, but not something that I'm like actively trying to buy one right now, because they're so expensive that I think it takes away from the fun. I would want any car that I have. I'm not a car collector. I just really love.
Really?
I mean, people always think I'm a collector because I have a lot of cars. I only have the cars because I want to drive them. I want to experience them. I got into BMWs, later on in my life. Really into the older BMWs. Love the way they drive, but it's almost as if I'll drive it twice and it'll break, and so while I'm either fixing that or waiting for it to get fixed, I end up buying another one, and that breaks, and I end up with a collection. Yeah, I've got a collection of cars that are always in some stage of either being broken or broken, and that's a joke. I mean, but yeah, I don't have any cars because I want to collect it or because I'm speculating on the value going up or something like that. Everything that I have, I just either wanted to experience how it drove, and cars that I have that, I'll drive them, but for whatever reason, they're not, like my favorite thing to drive, I'll sell it. And then there are cars that I have that I absolutely love and that I won't sell,
right?
Because I love driving them, and I haven't found anything else that gives me, something I'm experiencing with that car. So I'll keep it, but I don't keep it because I'm collecting it. I keep it because I want to go drive it, and that's and the benchmark. The car that I've had the longest is my E90 M3. It's my favorite car. I've had it the longest.
Okay.
And that's really the benchmark that I use in my head when I'm comparing other cars.
Yes.
And so I am in the mindset and the camp that's one of the greatest cars of all time made. And it's not because it's particularly exceptional at one thing. It's just really fun to drive, and it's really good at doing pretty much everything.
Yes.
So yeah, not a collector.
Usually I ask what your favorite track is.
Okay.
But is there a favorite track and a car combination for you?
Well, my two favorite cars for any track are my GT3 and my E92. And I can't tell you that I like driving either one of those cars better on a particular track, except for Auto Club Speedway. I like driving the GT3 at Auto Club, but that's gone, unfortunately. My favorite track that I've driven, I've only driven tracks in California, and I haven't driven all the tracks in California yet, and one in Arizona. Difficult. I mean, I drove a few times at the Thermal Club, which it's not my favorite track, but it was my favorite experience because of how beautiful the track is and how
well maintained.
Yeah. With the surface and the curbing, and it just feels like you're on a real professional track. My favorite track to go to consistently is Buttonwillow, because I really like the track, the experience of driving on that track, the layout, a lot more than Willow Springs, for example, and it's still relatively close to here. It's takes me an hour and 45 minutes or so to get there. Also really love Chuckwalla. I could like that more than Buttonwillow, but the extra 2 hours it takes to get there kind of kills it for me. I like to be able to run out to the track, get all my lapping in, and then get back home by the afternoon. I don't spend a whole day of it usually, and so yeah, I'd say Buttonwillow for those reasons.
Okay. And then obviously if you drive BMW so much, then a lot of people at that point start looking at Porsches, right?
Yeah, so Porsche has been my favorite marque since I was a kid. I was growing up in the 80s, and at that time, everybody who was into cars was really into like the Ferrari Testarossa or the Lamborghini Countach. I was always into the Porsches, especially like the 930 turbo slant nose. I remember having a poster of that car in my bedroom, all like growing up, like staring at that car, thinking someday I want to have that car. And then, like I said, when Porsche came out with the 996 GT3 in the early 2000s, I guess 2004, I thought, man, that is just like holy grail dream car. I want to have one of those someday. But then I bought a 996 GT3 when I was in my mid 30s, and this was after I had been driving BMWs a lot. So that car was stock, and honestly, it was a little underwhelming to me because I was comparing it to modified BMWs that I had been driving, and that car was stock, and it also drives very differently being rear engine, and me being so used to front engine, it took me a really long time to get the feel for how to drive Porsche. And so I didn't keep that GT3. I sold it. It didn't meet the expectations that I had produced in my mind, years of dreaming about having one of those cars. But that kind of set me on a little adventure through Porsches of trying to find the Porsche that I felt was perfect for me.
I see.
And so, whereas with the BMWs, I have cars that I've had a very long time, and I've bought and sold a lot of BMWs, but with the BMWs, I've bought and kept a lot of those cars, and I keep them because I like driving them for some aspect that makes them different from another BMW that I already have. With the Porsches, I kind of just kept buying one that I thought I might like and modifying it, and then ultimately not falling in love with it and selling it and buying another one. So that's why when you look around, I have a lot of BMWs and only a couple Porsches. It's because I kept just trying to find that one Porsche that was perfect for me. And so I went through a lot of different Porsches, really, really good cars. And I went down the line of GT3s, owning all of the different, generations of GT3s. And ultimately, after I had a 991.2 GT3, which was a fantastic car. I mean, it was really great, but just for me, it wasn't like the car that I wanted to keep. I realized that the 996 GT3 was like the ultimate chassis for what I enjoy in the car.
Even compared to 997, would you say 996 is more pure feel?
I say so.
Okay.
And I know that's an unpopular opinion because most people consider the 997 generation to be like the pinnacle in terms of like balance, right? Of not being too overly computerized and techy, and being new enough that it's got a good motor, good power, comfortable inside. It doesn't look outdated. It's everybody considers the 997. Most people consider it as the peak Porsche era. But for me and for my use case, which is mainly just going to the racetrack and occasionally going out, to drive in the local canyons, the 996 is the one for me. And
I see.
the reason being, it's not as fast as the 997 out of the box, but with some specific mods in the 996, it really wakes that car up. One of those is gearing. If you put in shorter gearing, it makes it drive a lot better.
I see.
And then suspension work makes the car handle a lot better. And so for me, that car feels really small. It feels really light. Those are two things that I gravitate towards. I love small light cars, and that stems from my passion starting with the WRC cars and, you know, just little hatchbacks with turbo 4-cylinder motors, like totally what I just loved, you know, as opposed to bigger, faster drag cars or anything like that. So the 996 GT3 is the one for me, and it's because of how connected I feel to the car, how tossable it is. Because 911s have the motor in the back, generally they don't like to slide so much. You know, you have to be more precise with your driving style. But I really enjoy kind of hooning it, you know, like sliding. I love sliding. Not that I'm a drifter, but like I like going sideways.
You're driving at the very limit, so to say.
Definitely feeling the limits and pushing the limits and controlling the car and sliding, and it's just because it's fun. It's not because it's, you know, faster. We know it's not faster around the track. It's just a lot of fun. And so the 996 GT3 for me, I love because that car you can actually slide. You can throw it into a corner sideways, and it doesn't want to pendulum around and you know, spin out like other Porsches that I've driven hard. I've felt are more difficult to like control that. You know, they want to spin more. And so I had a couple different 996 GT3s, but then after I had you know 997, 991 GT3s, I had a GT4 that I really like went crazy on modifying. I realized the 996 was the one for you. One for me, and so that's when I found this car. And then I just, you know, I did all of the mods that I felt like would make the car perfect for me. And I feel like it is. Like, so that's a car that I'm totally in love with. You know, and I want to keep it because it's like the ultimate Porsche that I've ever driven.
I see. Rob, it's quite a collection. Yeah, let's start with the two cars that you track. Yeah, and before we get into that, I see you rocking the SDC. Shout out to the SoCal Driver Club. They're a great venue. Rob runs with them, and I try to run with them whenever I get a chance. So
my favorite group to go to the track with.
Shout out to them. So as we were saying, this is these two are pretty much your favorite cars out of your collection, right?
For tracking, yeah.
Let's start with the chassis. What kind of suspension are you running?
A Moton.
Moton, okay. Moton 2-way, 3-way?
It's a 2-way.
Remote. And then
so stock brakes, but it's got aftermarket suspension. I kept the interior in the car, but I changed the seats out to buckets, and it's got a roll, like a half cage to mount the suspension reservoirs too, and also the harnesses.
Can I open this side or whichever side? Okay, thank you. Man, this is so like 90s. It's so cool.
Because it's so 90s cool. So, upgraded shifter, the CAE shifter with cup car cables that go back to the transmission. It's really direct. I use this shifter because I like how it's up closer to the steering wheel, and so it makes it faster and easier for me to shift when I'm on track and keep my hands on the wheel. And that it still has air conditioning. But it's got a radio delete, and otherwise it's all stock interior. I kept the carpeting.
That's so
and
cool.
I kept the headliner and everything.
So you still have AC?
Still has AC. It actually works really well.
Wow. So you pretty much drive this thing to the track, right?
I trailer to the track.
But
that's not because it's that uncomfortable to drive. it's actually pretty comfortable to drive on the street. The suspension it's good, but it's forgiving. It doesn't jar over bumps. I trailer it though because I have a tendency to break things. And so if I have to drive the car home, then there's a chance that I might not, have as much fun because I won't go as hard. So
Gotcha.
that's primarily why I trailer.
Gotcha. Just a beautiful interior. I see the Motan reservoir there.
So the rear engine cover, the deck lid is cup car style.
Oh, yeah.
And the wing is not stock.
Nice, nice. Wow.
And so this car has, it's got a ring and pinion out of a cup car, which gives it like a shorter final drive.
Gotcha, yeah.
It's got an upgraded LSD.
Okay.
Using Porsche Motorsport clutch packs.
Okay.
Car drives really, really great.
Okay.
Really fun. The motor screams. The Dundon exhaust is really loud, but it sounds like a race car. It's like my cup car for the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Love it.
What kind of tires are you running? CRS, huh?
CRS. Yeah.
How do you like these tires?
I love them.
Ah, great. Such a beautiful car. Yeah, off camera we were briefly talking about the 996 headlights. So now you're saying that the prices on 996 are going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
996 is. Part of that is because everything rises when the tide rises, right? And so 997 values went crazy.
Yeah.
And so 996 values kind of followed suit. But what I've been noticing is funny is that I've always loved 996s. Mm-hmm. I've always loved the design. They're the only 911 that has a unique headlight design. Every other 911 has round headlights. But everybody hated the headlight design of the 996 for so many years. And I just didn't understand why. Now, in the last couple of years, people I hear saying that they like the headlight design and that they like the 996s, and I'm feeling like, yeah, this is what I've been saying all along. They're fantastic and they look great. So.
Very cool. And is that an aftermarket splitter?
Yeah, it's an aftermarket splitter. It's fashioned after an IMSA style that was used in racing back in the, in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
I drive this car as it's made to be driven. I drive it really hard. I have a lot of fun with it. It's been extremely reliable. Mm-hmm. I drive it really hard. Obviously I take good care of it and all my cars. Mm-hmm. Always changing the fluids and checking everything, getting it nut and bolted before I go out on the track. It hasn't given me any problems, but you can see by all the rash and stuff on the bumper.
Yes.
I don't baby it.
Well, normally we would spend a little more time, but since we got so many cars to cover, let's move on over to the E92.
Sure. So this is my other favorite car to drive on the track. I love BMWs, I love M3s, and for me, E36 and E90, E92 are my favorite M3s. The E90s and E92s are a little heavy for being a track car, but the dynamics are so fun, and they drive a lot smaller than they actually are. They don't feel as heavy on the track. And so with this car, initially it was just a street car, but I've been slowly modifying it to the point where it's almost just going to be a track car.
Okay.
I've gutted most of the interior. I've done some modifications to the driveline, and I've got upgraded suspension and brakes and everything that you would do to a car that you're going to be driving on track. I love this car. It's so much fun to drive. It's really fast. My lap times are almost identically equal in this car and the GT3.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's really funny. They're like, when I'm at the wheel, they're like identical in terms of lap times.
Interesting.
But I drive them both. I take different lines around the track because of the way that you have to drive these cars. So it's a funny thing. You'd think that one would be, I mean, even like with like a second faster than the other.
Yeah.
My personal best time at Button Willow in the E92 is a 155.8.
Okay.
And in the GT3 is a 155.2. So, and I'm stuck. I'm stuck at that 155 number, man. I need to do some coaching or some practice or something to figure out how to get faster, because both cars are definitely faster around the track when somebody else who knows what they're doing is driving. I just need to figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Well, 55 is plenty fast, and we're not there to, say we're the fastest. We're just there to have fun.
But it's, for me,
It's
part of
frustrating too, right?
not that it's frustrating. Part of the fun is setting goals and working at achieving goals.
Yes.
That's how my personality is, not just with cars,
Right.
with life.
Yeah.
Everything is about goals and that satisfaction you get when you achieve a goal. So I love going to the track non-competitively. I have so much fun taking my cars out and just driving them and trying to get the best line that I can around the track or have the most fun. And so part of why I keep going and what keeps me coming back is that there's room for improvement. There's ways to learn to be better and faster. And it's really tangible because you've got a lap timer and that tells you exactly if you're doing something better or not. And so I just keep trying. It's like I'm working on my talent. I'm working on my skill.
Gotcha.
And so it's not because I want to compare myself to somebody else. It's just trying to get better and trying to learn. Those are things that really capture my attention.
Yes.
So yeah, this car I've been modifying recently to try to make it faster.
Okay.
Because it is, for me, a 155 is pretty fast. But I recently changed the suspension, which I upgraded the suspension to an MCS that I'm working on trying to get the right adjustments. I'm not good at suspension adjusting, and so this is something that I'm learning about as I work on the car, and also realizing that I need to add some aero to the car to be able to put the power down and get traction. So I'm working on adding some aero to the car now.
Cool. And you're rocking the new Bridgestone, right? 71
Yeah,
RS.
so I've got the 71 RS.
Yeah.
I really love that tire. For years, my favorite track tire was NT01, Nitto NT01. They still make them.
Yep.
They're great tires. They're just not as fast as some of the newer tires,
Right.
like the Nankangs
Yep.
and the Bridgestones. The NT01s, part of what I loved about them is that they last so long.
Yes.
And are consistent, like time-wise and feel-wise. They're consistent throughout the entire life of the tire. Unfortunately, none of the newer tires that I've tried, and I try everything that comes to market, none of them last as long as the NT01s, but they're faster when they're fresh. Yeah. So the RE71 RS I love, the CRS I love. The Supercar 3Rs I loved while I could get them, but I haven't been able to get them for like a year. But they only like on the E92, which is a pretty heavy car, I'll only get like 3 track days out of a set of tires.
Okay.
Then the GT3 tires last a lot longer than the E92, which is cool. And I just started running a semi-slick, a Hoosier, on the track in the GT3, which has been like a really cool experience. You know, it's a lot more grip than a regular R compound tire, and so I'm having fun with that. Maybe I'll start running semi-slicks on the E92 as well.
Do you have the weight for the 996 and E92 and power maybe?
I don't know how much the 996 weighs.
Okay.
But whatever the stock weight is, it's probably there, because I replaced the seats with lighter seats, but it has the roll cage, and the wing I think is probably maybe a little bit heavier than the stock deck lid with the stock wing. So I'd say it's about factory weight, whatever those are, somewhere probably around 3,100 and 3,200 pounds. The E92 recently had it corner balanced, and I think it was right around like just under 3,200 pounds, or right around 3,200 pounds.
And power-wise?
The GT3 it makes about 375 to the wheels. The E92 I haven't put on a dyno, but it's a stock motor, and it has an Epic tune, and it's got exhaust with no cats. So I don't know how much power it's making, but you know, it's making a little more than stock because of the tune and because it's breathing a little better, but not sure. My E90, which has the same motor, I put a supercharger on that car, and so it makes a lot more power, especially a lot more torque than stock.
All right, I think that's good for the track cars.
Cool.
I mean, there's so much to cover, but we got so many other cars.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about this E36.
Okay. I love E36s. The styling for me, because it's from the era when I was really falling in love with cars like this. It's so 90s. It's so cool to me, to my eye. I just love the way that they look. And especially the way that E36s drive. It's like the most balanced, neutral chassis I think I've ever felt. It's super forgiving. You can drive them hard at the limit, and they never want to, you know, do something to bite you for making a mistake. You can literally be sideways in this car, and you just, you know, can easily get it back to straight with the steering wheel and the throttle.
Yeah.
So really fun to drive. You know, stock, I feel like they're a little underpowered. This is a European
Oh, is this
car,
okay?
and so it's got the European S50, which I had always read about so many years, why we didn't get the European motor, how much better it was than the S50 or the S52, the US versions. I can tell you that now, having driven the European 3-liter, it's not that wowing, you know, not that big of a difference. I mean, it's cool that it's got individual throttle bodies. It's definitely a cooler motor, but it's not like the car is like crazy faster.
I see.
It feels like it has less mid-range actually than the US car. But I love the way that they look. And the European car has the Alcantara and cloth M-Rain interior, which I really love what manufacturers were doing with interiors back in the 90s.
Jeez. Yeah, that's the super famous. What do they call this?
This
The
is
pattern?
M-Rain. But they had a bunch of different style cloth interiors in the 90s. Same with Volkswagen and other manufacturers that just made these cool looking patterns. Yeah. I love that. And so I love the way that this interior looks, and I'm building another E36 right now, like a track car. Okay. But it's not a dedicated track car, so it'll have some interior. And I'm using the M-Rain cloth and Alcantara because it's just, to me, it looks so cool.
Very cool. All right, thank you. Next.
Yeah, E90. This is my favorite car. I told you before, it's a car that I've had the longest. To me, this is like just such a great all-around car. It looks good. I love the way that they used the widen flares on the rear, make it have those wide hips. I like that it's a sedan. And so, you know, to somebody who doesn't necessarily know, it just looks pretty much like any other BMW sedan. Yeah. But it's got a V8 that sounds incredible, high revving V8. I mean, how motorsport is that, you know? Right. It's like what I always dreamed about. And so since I've had this car so long, and because it's my favorite, I've modified everything on this car, and I've had it a long time, and so I've like changed things out multiple times, making it, you know, I started off tracking this car, and so I had done some modifications to make it work better on track. Like I had an upgraded suspension with remotes, but then I got to the point with my tracking where I wanted to go faster and I wanted to drive harder, and I felt like I didn't want to lose the streetability aspect of this car because it's such a great car to drive on the street. And so I stopped tracking this car, and that's when I built a dedicated track car to just, you know, drive hard. So this car, I've kept the full interior. I didn't do any kind of roll bar or anything because I wanted to keep it as a street car. I have 2 kids, and you know, when I first bought this car, they were much younger, and so we'd go places together. I loved having this car to be able to, you know, just run errands or do anything. It was such a cool, like, dad car to have because it was pretty subtle looking, but still drove really great. I told you earlier I put a Harrup supercharger on this car, and that just really changed the way that it drives. It gave it a lot more torque, which the S65 motors are, you know, they're high revving, but they're not known for being very torquey. All of the added torque from the supercharger makes this car just a hoon machine. Like, it gives full torque at like maybe 2,500 RPM, and so you can kick the tail out anytime you want. It's so much fun.
It looks so good with the gold BBSs.
Yeah, I love the E88s.
Yeah.
They're such a cool looking wheel. I don't use them for the track because I find that they're a little heavy and a little soft compared to, you know, like Apex wheels. Apex are my favorite kind of wheels for the track because their forged stuff is super light and very strong. The BBS, they look the part, but you can bend them pretty easily, and they're not the lightest. But since this is a street car, I just love the way that the wheels look with the car.
And I see a Touring up there. What's the story with that one?
Well, you know, the U.S. market never got the E30 Touring.
Right.
But I really love wagons. Always have. Way more than SUVs or crossovers. It's too bad that not enough Americans agree with me. But anyway, this car is an import from from the UK, so it's a right-hand drive.
Oh, is it really? Okay, cool.
And I got really into certain specs of BMWs, you know, back when I started like looking for them that I wanted to buy. One of the things is I hate sunroofs. Okay. And so there are some cars in here with sunroofs, but in general, I try never to buy a car with a sunroof. This Touring is pretty special in that it's a slick top. It's got a no sunroof and it's right-hand drive, and it's got the sport interior, which is also pretty rare for an E30 Touring.
Very cool.
So a lot of the cars that I have back here on the lifts, they're mostly E30 M3s, but these cars don't get driven because they're waiting their turn. They're waiting their turn to go to the shop and get built. I have a lot of. I'm really into modifying cars. I love doing motor swaps and putting you know, like a newer, better, faster motor into an older car. So all of these cars, including the right-hand drive Touring, are just waiting for their turn to go to the shop and get a motor swap. The shop that I use for all the BMW stuff, so all my projects and swaps, is Castro Motorsport. They are just really good with the E30s, E36s, older BMWs, and doing motor swaps. I put S54s or S65s in my projects, and they take good care of me and do really good work. So.
So do you have engines picked up for each of these cars?
Yeah, so I put S54s in most of the E30s. So all of these, like the E30 M3s, they'll get S54s. The E30 Touring, I might put an S54, I might just put an S52. I found that an E30, for a street car, an E30 with an S52 is...
Too much.
No, it's a ton of fun. It's great fun. And S54 is great too, but the S52, it gives you plenty of power and torque to have a great time in an E30 for a street car. But the M3s, so this is my E30 M3 is my track car. So this car currently has an S14, but it's a 2.5 liter Evo build. And for me, I don't like the S14. I know that's probably sacrilegious to most BMW guys, but it's just not very exciting of a motor. So I'm putting an S54 in this car.
Nice.
The E30, the black E30 next to it is a sedan. That car I built just as a dedicated track car. And I put an S54 in that car, and it's just a riot. It's so much fun. Like the power to weight ratio makes for a really exciting time on track. It's like a little roller skate. So I'm putting an S54 in the M3 as well.
This guy up here is it looks like it's got like the correct wheels and everything to be like a street car, right?
Yeah. So the other M3s that I have, you know, I love the style of the E30 M3. And so I've been buying them. You see a couple of the ones that I have here are just, you know, shells or part cars. Like I've just been buying them as I see them come up over the years. But this is before COVID and before a parts car E30 M3 costs 50 grand.
Yeah.
Which is retarded.
Yeah.
So none of these cars that I have here I spent that much money on, and you know, I just have them for like future projects.
Do you sell these cars too? If somebody wanted to reach out to you and...
Yeah, so there are some cars that I have that I would never consider selling. But a lot of the cars that I have, I bought them because I wanted the experience, or I
Yeah.
bought them because I wanted to do a certain project
Right.
with them. And so after I have that experience, or after I do the project, I'll sell them, and I end up buying something else. It's like a disease. But yeah, I don't. I'm not a car collector, and this is not a collection. These are just my cars.
Right.
And for sure, I sell them especially if, like, I have a friend who drives one and he really wants it, or he has to have it. If I'm not, attached to it, then I'll sell it.
Yeah. But you're not doing it for money. You're just
No.
You're
So,
losing money basically.
you know what? The way, like, I generally don't buy anything unless I feel like it's a good find,
yeah,
or a good
yeah.
deal. And so, that being the case, if I'm gonna sell a car, like, I'll just sell it to. Usually, I sell a car to a friend or somebody I know through a friend, and I'll just sell it for what I've got into it. And so, because of the way that I buy the cars, even after I've put money into fixing whatever's wrong or something, generally, even if I sell it for what I've got into it, it's still a good deal for the buyer, because the market has gone up in value so much that the car, if I bought a car for 10 grand 2 years ago and it's worth 20 grand now, even if I spent 6 grand on fixing it and I sold it to my buddy for 16 grand, he's still getting a car that's under the market value, and I'm not losing money. Big picture, yeah, sure, I'll lose a little money because I'm paying for storage and insurance and stuff, but it's not a business for me. It's a hobby, and it's something that I love. So it's actually relatively cheap hobby, considering anytime I sell something, I'll break even.
That's true.
Yeah.
Can you tell that one more time to my wife?
Buy cars.
Okay, and we're finally here at E46, Laguna Seca Blue.
Yeah, so E46, not my favorite M3 chassis, and I can't tell you specifically why. I love the S54 motor. I love the looks of these cars. I think they're gorgeous. I have an obsession with Alpine white BMWs, especially with like basic cloth interiors and no sunroofs. This car is not that at all. It's a bright, Smurf blue color. It's got a sunroof. But I love this color on this chassis. I've seen Laguna Seca Blue on other chassis like E92. But for me, the way that this color looks on this chassis is just really great. And so I've got this car because I love the way that it looks more than the way that it drives. Still a fantastic driving car, but I'd prefer to drive an E36 or an E90. But yeah, so I just have this car because I love the color and the way that it looks. It's got some dark TEs on it right now. I think it needs to have some like silver E88s or LMs or something to really go with the color. So I'll be changing that. And so just like everything, I've always got work going on all the cars. This car, you can see the bumpers failing. It's got like it hit something here, and especially down here, it's been scraped on driveways too much. So I have a freshly painted brand new bumper, like just waiting to go.
This is your seat section.
Yeah.
Do you collect seats?
I'm not a collector. No.
Are you sure? Okay.
I've got seats that are just waiting to go into. So I'm gonna change the seats in the Corolla.
Okay.
I've got some of a pair of Recaro RSGs from Japan. I think they'll look cool in that car, and they fit me well.
Okay.
I've just got spare seats because I'm always modifying cars to be more trackable. I've got a E90 slick top headliner that I just have. It's not that I have a car, but I know I'll probably buy an E90 with a sunroof someday and want to change the roof out to be a slick top. So yeah, I'm not a collector, but I'm definitely a hoarder.
Yeah. All the original seats, I'm guessing?
Yeah, these are stock seats that I've taken out of various cars.
Yeah. Very organized. Do you wrench on your cars too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put in this lift, so I could do, I'm not a mechanic, but
Just for fun, like
yeah, I could
doing oil changes.
I could do oil changes. I can do basic stuff like, exhaust or suspension, whatever.
Yeah. It's a great hobby, right?
I love it. It's a lot of fun.
More seats.
Seats. That's actually a BMW Z1.
Oh, okay. I see the grill now.
The kidneys, yeah. That's a weird car. It's not something that we got in North America. It's kind of like looks like a Z3 or a Z8.
Oh, yeah.
But it's got weird doors. They don't swing open. They just slide down into the really high rockers.
Interesting.
Weird car.
And you got Hammond wheels on it. That's cool. What are those body panels for?
Those are all fiberglass body panels for an E9 CSL style. Like,
cool.
They called it the Batmobile.
Yeah. So you're gonna build one day, I guess?
Yeah, I'm gonna build one day.
So you buy the parts first and then buy the car? Or whatever deal comes up, you buy it and you buy the car?
If I see parts that I know are hard to find, even if I don't have the car at the time, I'll buy the parts and just put them in storage for someday when I know I'm gonna eventually like have the car or think I'll need the parts. And the same thing with engines. I've got a bunch of motors, BMW motors that I've bought over the years. If I find one come up that's a good deal, I'll just buy it and just save it for the eventual project that I know I'm going to want it for. And same thing with wheels and tires. You can see all of these are my wheels for different cars, for the track or the street. Definitely a hoarder, man. I've got, I don't know, like 30 sets of wheels just sitting around.
Yeah.
The E36 lightweights they've gone up in collectible value.
Yeah.
But that's one of those cars where the collectability of it, I think far outweighs like the actual car itself. Because it's not a very different driving experience from a regular E36 M3. I mean, it's got aluminum doors, which are cool. They were brought over here for a specific reason by PTG, but I've got a 95 E36 M3 that's Alpine white and it's slick top, and I'm building it to be like a really fun car, and it's in my mind, there's no difference between driving that car and a true LTW. So I don't think that the values they could be justified for collectors or investors. But for somebody who wants like the cool driving experience, there is no way that spending an extra 70 grand on a car, you get any of that back in the actual driving experience versus buying just a regular E36 M3.
Is that how much they go for nowadays?
I mean, they range in price depending on the condition from like 50 to 100 grand.
Jeez.
And you can buy a really well-driving, well-sorted E36 M3 for like 20 to 30 grand.
Right.
So unless you just want to be a collector or be able to like brag that you have an LTW, there's no reason to spend the money on the actual LTW. But yeah, that's a real LTW.
Cool. All right, the last car we're gonna cover today is the also very rare car that not everybody gets to buy, I guess.
So it's not. I wouldn't say it's that rare now that Toyota's been delivering more. But
what's the whole issue with that? They promise certain limited number of cars, and then
Yeah, when they announced that they were going to make the GR Corolla for the U.S., they said it was going to be like a limited production. I don't know how many units they said, but it wasn't going to be a mass-produced car, like relative to like a regular Corolla or a Camry or something, right? Because my passion with sports cars started off in Toyota and rally. I've always loved Toyotas, but Toyota stopped making good cars in the 90s. I mean, they made the Supra, the newer generation Supra, and the GR86 or the FRS, but those aren't like actual Toyotas in my mind, because they're not fully designed and powered by Toyota. So when Toyota announced that they're actually making this GR Corolla, and it's all designed in-house, and it's a little hatchback, all-wheel drive, turbo, in my mind, little rally car. I just had to have one. Like, as soon as I first read about it or heard about it, I was like, I have to have that car. I don't care how much it costs, like, I just want one. And it was actually really, really hard to get. Like, from the moment that they announced the car, and I started reading all I could about them, and I started reaching out to Toyota dealers, and I don't have any relationships with Toyota dealers because I haven't bought a Toyota. I don't think I ever bought a new Toyota before. None of the dealers could promise an allocation. Nobody could even say what they were getting, or if you could order, like, I was trying to order one to my own specs. Nobody was offering that. None of the dealers were offering that. And so as as it got closer to Toyota actually starting to deliver some of these cars, and there was more hype about them, and I had been talking to friends, like, I want to get a Corolla, I want to find a Corolla, and a lot of people would look at me kind of sideways because I'm such a BMW and Porsche guy. A Corolla. I remember when I first showed my wife a picture of the car, and I was like, I can't wait till this car comes out, I'm gonna get one. And she laughed, and she's like, you want a Corolla? Like, seriously, you want a Corolla? But it just happened that a friend of mine knew that I wanted one. He was talking to another friend of his about the car, and it came up that I was looking for one, and then that friend had a family member who worked for Toyota, who they put me in touch with, and that person said, oh yeah, they found one that was in production at the specs that I wanted, and helped me work with a dealer to buy the car. So I was able to, even though I wasn't able to order one or get an allocation, I was able to get this. This was one of the first Corollas delivered here to the US, and I freaking love it. Like, it's so what I just wanted it to be, which is just like a little rally car. It's got new car technology, which I don't really care for. I wish it didn't have the whole touch screen for the radio and the navigation, and it's got a bunch of driver nannies that you have to turn off, like lane change assist and all that stuff, which I don't care about. But that's because I didn't buy this car to drive it to work or to use it for daily. I bought this car literally to go try out rallycross and like drive it on gravel roads and pretend I'm Colin McRae, and and for that I've put like a little over 1,000 miles on it. After the break-in period, I've taken it to the canyons, and I've taken it to the fire roads, and thrown it sideways into corners off-road. It's just so much fun. And so I'm going to modify this like I modify every car. My plan for this is to put on a rally type suspension, so it handles better off road. I'm gonna gut out most of the interior and put some seats and harnesses, and just use it as a rally car. Like it's so fun.
I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
First one is, what does sub 2 mean to you?
Sub 2 has got some different meanings. I mean, obviously, sub 2 is a reference to your lap time at Buttonwillow. And it's a benchmark that a lot of people use to determine like whether a car or a driver is, capable and quick. So when I started doing track days at Buttonwillow, sub 2 wasn't like a phrase like it is now, right? And so I didn't necessarily use it as my benchmark for like trying to get under 2 minutes when I started tracking at Buttonwillow. But it's now, through your brand, like other brands like Sub 2 Speedhouse, through social media, kind of really expanding the popularity of track driving and this new like loosely knit group of friends who are all track enthusiasts who all go to these track days and communicate via social media or the forums or whatever. Now Sub 2 has become this thing of really distinguishing between like good driver and an okay driver, or like if a car is like really capable or not. And as more guys get more time and are getting faster on the track, and cars are more capable, now sub 150 has become a thing. I'm not, so if you're asking me what sub 2 means to me, it's kind of like a benchmark that's a really cool, like aspirational benchmark for people who are getting into track driving. If I can get to sub 2, like I'm gonna hit that goal. And that's the same thing as sub 150 means to me now, because I can drive pretty much any car sub 2 at Buttonwillow. But I'm stuck. I'm stuck at 155 or almost 154. And so now sub 150 to me is like, I have friends who go out there in cars that are very similar to mine, and they run sub 150. And so I know that it's possible. And I know that if they're doing it, I can do it. And so now that, it's like an aspirational goal, and it's something that's like really fun because everybody has the same goal. If it's sub 2, and they're novices, or if they're sub 150 and they're, a little more advanced. It's like a really fun, cool concept of like, let's look like, and the way that the track days are, I think maybe a little different than competitive, like sanctioned racing, is that everybody's just there for fun. And even though it can be competitive with like, to want to know if you're faster than somebody, it's all fun. And so everybody's always like rooting for like their friend, like you can do it, like get sub 2, like you're at 201 or like you're at 2.03, it's like a really fun kind of like inclusive idea.
For sure. Last question I have is, what things about life do you learn through cars? Okay,
I don't know about life, but I will say that I've found that cars, like car enthusiasm, especially, well, maybe all car enthusiasm, but as I can relate to sports car enthusiasm, it's the one thing that I've noticed, like the one passion or the one hobby that brings people together from all socioeconomic classes, all aspects and walks of life. I have made so many acquaintances and friends through the shared passion of cars that I have, maybe nothing else in common with, or that there's no way that I could see, become like building a relationship with that person through any other hobby or interest or thing in life. And so I think that it's really amazing how cars, cars can bring people together better than any other thing, like any other interest or passion in life. I think it's really cool. And so for that, I don't know, how that relates to what cars mean for life or whatever, but I think that the car passion is really interesting, that you can make friends with people that you would never maybe even consider talking to.
Right. Sure, that's a good answer. All right, guys, there's a little glimpse of Rob's man cave here. It's it's pretty crazy, but you're gonna go look at more cars out here. So yeah, we were just talking about it off camera, and you were interested in looking at a Camaro ZL1.
It's a Z28.
Z28.
Yeah.
Z28. So, man.
Yeah, I've never been really into American cars. I've got a classic muscle car, an old Chevy, but a friend of mine has a Z28, the Gen 5 Z28. They made them in 2014 and 2015, and so I'm thinking about maybe getting one to experience big displacement, 7-liter V8.
Yeah.
Merica.
Yeah.
Put an American flag.
Gotta have something, right? Gotta have some America in here.
I think maybe I'll check one of those out.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much for watching today, and follow Rob's journey. Here's his Instagram. Thank you for joining once more, Rob, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you.
Right on.